Dragon XDM, and someday you too can aspire to this level, although you will never attain it. We must know here as we begin how many people here have been to the seminar before. Oh dear. How many have not been to an XDM seminar before? Oh. Well, then we have to do the recruit ceremony. I'd like to welcome everybody here to Extreme Dungeon Mastery, your common game. This particular tome is available to you in booth 745. 745. Let's hear it. 745. Thank you very much. One more time. 745. That's right. Don't forget it. That booth number is your friend. That booth number will take care of you in all of your trials and tribulations as a DM. I'm worried they're having trouble figuring out the chair in the back. Never mind, you're fine, good. How are they ever going to master XDM? Alright, welcome to an XDM. XDM is, of course, Extreme Dungeon Mastery. This is the cure of the common game. We are going to teach you the secrets of XDM. XDM has been around the time of Pythagoras. And as detailed inside the XDM manual, you will discover, of course, that the Code of Hammurabi were in fact rudimentary role-playing rules. That the Greek, in their Greek tragedies, also had their own set of rules, but unfortunately the rock, paper, and dagger method of resolution always ended up with dagger winning. This was a play balance problem until Pythagoras came along and got dice. But your members of a proud tradition here, we're going to indoctrinate you into the ways of the XDM. We're going to close the door to the back of the hall because this is such a secret. No, it's not really that. But isn't it fun to pretend? So, yes, here we are. Extreme Outlaw RPG Referee Tricks Unleashed. Now, we are going to go through lots of stuff here. Some of it we're going to skip, and some of it we're going to add that's new today for you people who have been here before and are wondering why you came again. But because we have so many people in the room, we are going to have to go through this, oh dear, initiation ritual. We must first test to see if you are, in fact, prepared to be an XDM. Are you an XDM? And is this going to work? Okay, question one. Which die shape has more faces than a dodecahedron?
The centahedron.
A tetrahedron. An octahedron. Icosahedron. When I die, I will only have one. Are you an XDM? Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? Never. Why would you ask such a question? Never stop doubting, comrade. I don't remember anything. Do they play classic games? What is a communist? Are you an XDM? The player in the game rolls a natural 20 and his 2 hit dice, and he mistakenly rolls he misses. The player jumps up from the table, quoting you the page and paragraph of the rule that says he has hit the monster. You answer him by apologizing for the oversight and immediately correcting the problem. I don't mean to, impose the answer on you based on my inflection, but tell him to sit down and shut up. Tell him you are a beta tester for the upcoming I strongly recommend it. For the first time this year, you can actually claim this legitimately. Telling this character just discovered a secret from the game. Or turn up the fog machine, laser, sound effects, and pyrotechnics. Are you an XDM? Most of the players in the game are having a good time, but one young player at the end of the table is looking distracted. You react to this by making fun of him and humiliating him in front of the other players in order to teach him character and backbone a little bit. Let him play your computer video games for the rest of you more serious gamers. This is a popular answer here. Stop the game. Conduct a session with all the players about their feelings and willingness to include all members. Attack the character in the game, and then engage him in parlay and drop hints about the next step in the game, or turn up the fog machine. Two trains leave Chicago. Will you be able to get off the train to attend the GenCon convention before the fiery death in a head-on train collision? A, yes, the trains will collide after I get to GenCon. B, no trains will collide before I get to GenCon. Neither the trains will collide at GenCon. Or, I'll be fine since I always drive to GenCon to save money to buy XDM. Maybe. Oh, and what is no? What is an XDM? What is an XDM? XDMs do make an effort to make the game fun and exciting for everyone. Toss out the rules when they're in the way of a good time. Toss out dice when they're in the way of a good time. Toss out players when they're in the way of a good time. Paint the picture with style. Never cheat the players. Makes up rules when necessary. Listens to his audience. Knows that the better the prep, the better the game. Always know where the exit is and keeps it handy. Uses stagecraft, pyrotechnics, sleight of hand, and lasers. We apologize that the pyrotechnics section of the book was so heavily redacted. But TSA really insisted. Plays out all the consequences, played out ethics until the players squeal and knows the difference between good at story and a bad joke. Oh, and also only uses official my t-shirts, jeans, dice, and protective gear. This year includes, yes, the sanctioned XDM old pouch. Yes. It doesn't necessarily help your game, but it sure makes you look cool. XDMs also never cave into any rules lawyering, back down from a call. It's the no pigs actually do fly here rule. Read aloud from the adventure description text. Refer to the rule books ever. Make up the adventure as they go. Start a fire they can't put out. Saw anyone in half they can't put back together. Allow players to make simulated damage. Listen to those voices, terrible voices. Yeah, and of course, use anything but. Now, there are, as we have in fact, as we have described in the past, there are in fact what we've identified as 3 player types. But today we're also going to add an additional 3 player types that we would like you to consider as XDMs. Now, stepping out from my nonsense here for just a moment, I want to implore you to be XDMs. I want you to be Extreme Dungeon Master because one of the problems that we face in role-playing games today, more than ever, is that the role-playing game has forgotten about roles and forgotten about play and is all about, when a game, it's all about the rules. This is why you have so many different editions. Oh. And don't stand up and identify yourself because it's not a good story. They were sitting across from me. I was flying home from GenCon a few years back, and they just had the brand new AD&D, I don't know, 10.4 edition, or whatever it was that had just come out. And they were looking through the rules furiously, all the way there, talking all in there, buried in their books. And I'm sitting here on this plane across the aisle from them and listening to this conversation that's going on over here as we're landing in Denver Airport. And they're saying to each other, is there any way that we can make this spell permanent? I don't know, man. Is there some way we can make that spell permanent? I don't know. Maybe we'll look back over here. They're pouring through the books. And the plane landed, the door opened. I'm standing in the aisle waiting to file out. And I looked down at these guys and I said, there is a way to make that spell permanent. And all three of them look up and drag their books out at once. And they said, where is it? Where is it? I said, you know, seriously, there is an entire adventure written. There's an entire adventure about how to make that spell permanent. Is it available? Like, you know, can we buy it? I said, you haven't written it yet. And they looked at me like I had corn coming out of my ears. Because if it wasn't in the book, it can't possibly exist. Because our heads are so stuck in these rule sets that we start looking at the corridors and trying to measure the distances, you know, and whether there's an obstruction here between two. You know, I think about the old Errol Flynn movies, right? Errol Flynn leaps into the hallway, pulls out his bow, and he's not, you know, checking for distances here or what the obstructions are. Maybe if I move over here just a little bit more. I haven't moved far enough this turn, so now apparently I can move a little further and shoot it. No. It was about swinging from chandeliers. It was about, you know, leaping from parapets into moats. Which, let's face it, you know, probably is going to do some damage. It depends on the moat. That's true. But what I don't want you to do is to be like measuring the depth of the moat. Okay? I mean, if you're going to leap into the moat, leap into the moat. You know, if you want to really give the guy a lot of trouble, you make it a 3-foot deep moat. Although, why anybody want a 3-foot deep moat? Well, you know, we just didn't have a lot of money for the moat. We thought 3 feet would do it. You know, people would see it and be okay. So we have these types of players. So what we really want to talk about here is how to play. Remember play? We want to get back to play. This is what you did when you first started playing the game. This is when you remember the first role-playing game that you were in. And you remember that first encounter. And the reason was that it was so exciting. And you went around that corner and there was a kobold. And you were afraid. Because you didn't know it was going to eat your face. You know, now, you walk around the corner, oh yeah, see a kobold, let's do let's one. It's like 1 hit die, 3 hit points, I'll just step on it and we'll get on. Where's the wonder and the magic in that? I seriously want to write a module that's got kobolds in it that have like 56 hit points. It's totally screwing people's heads. And then like cave trolls and ogres and stuff that are in the halls are like 2. What, dead? Yeah, you know, like big balloon. You know? So to this end, I want you to recognize, especially as DMs, I want you to recognize the types of players that you want to deal with. And now we have the 3 player types that are in the book, the XDM manual. And we have 3 additional player types that we're going to be adding to our new book that we are trying to come out with next GenCon. We are trying to come out next GenCon with XPC, Extreme Player Character. And yes, it sounds like a drug, but there you go. And I guess we should all take it. So, we're going to talk about these three player types today, which the classic player types are in the manual, and then we're going to talk about three additional player types, and we're going to get some interplay going on here, what you think, and how we should deal with them. First player type here is the warrior player type. Warrior player type is defined as, if it moves, kill it. If it doesn't move, kick it till it moves. Take its stuff, buy bigger weapons, kill bigger things. If you have a player that is this kind of player, if you put him in an arena with going alphabetically down through a monster manual, they're good with that. As long as there's a break between rounds to go into town and buy like something really big. Second player type is the social player type. And according to the original research that TSR, if you can remember that far back, did, this player type is usually where female players come in RPG rather than battle. The social player is defined more like this. If it moves, talk to it. If it doesn't move, talk about it. Stay in character and speak with an effective voice. These are the thespian players. They love staying in character. They love dressing up as characters, for that matter, from time to time, and love talking in character. If you have an entire party of adventurers who are warrior players, that is easy. You give them an arena and they beat stuff up. If you have social players, what you do is you get them all together in a town setting, stick them in a tavern around a table, get them talking to each other in character, and go out for pizza. They will still be there when you return. If you have an entire party. Third type of player we think of as the thinking player. And the thinking player is, if it moves, how can I use this to help me win? If it doesn't move, how can I use that to help me win? The world's full of obstacles between me and winning. And I'll use whatever strategy I need to overcome them. The thinking player will either parlay, or they will fight, or whatever, as long as they feel like they are making progress toward a goal. These people are the reason why Disney has all those switchbacks at their park, so that you feel like you're making progress. And like those switchbacks at the Disney park, this kind of thing will stay forever going back and forth, as long as they can see that they're getting closer to the front. Okay? These are the three classic player types. Now, we're going to go back is what we're going to do, because I'm not finished with that. Okay. These are the three classic player types. And these are the ones that are listed in the game. And there are ways to deal with these, and we're going to talk about that today. But I also, in addition, want to put out three new player types that I'd like you to think about. The first player type that I want you to think about is, I'm going to call the engineer. The engineer is a gamer's gamer. The engineer, his interest is in the rules set and how he can manipulate the mechanics of those rules in order to either win the game or screw up the DM. That's kind of the dark side of engineering.
Aren't those the same thing?
Sometimes you can do both. DM's pride and you have one.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and if you have the kind of a DM who is in it to win, please do screw them up. The engineer player works the rules. Okay? And these are the kinds of people who will cast Tensor's floating disk for any number of reasons and try to combine it with various other effects to create untenable activity within the game. That is the engineer player. These are the players who, if they go into between me and it, and can I move faster than it can move? And these are people who are interested in things. We used to have a thing in D&D called a weapons speed table. Nobody used the weapons speed table except the engineers. My blade's faster than yours. So, there's the engineer type of player. They are the ones who are more interested in the rule set than they are in what's going on in the game. Okay? If the car was crashing, okay, if their car was in an accident, an engineer player would want to know about the physics involved in the crash, not necessarily whether lives were saved or not. Then, in addition to the engineer players, two other new player types, there is a part of the engineer player, and that is specialist player. And the specialist player is a player that has a very narrow focus. They are really here for just one thing, and it's the only thing that interests them. Yeah. Sometimes they are. Very often you find them in games. They're quiet. They don't participate. It's like they're not here. And all they're waiting for that one thing to happen that interests them. Okay? They are not eccentric, but specific. Eccentric means to have more than one center. It would be nice if they did. They only have one. They're like one note. And unless that is provided to them, they tune out and they don't pay any attention. And they're quiet. They don't want to interact because it's not what interests them. There's a second downside to this kind of a player, because when you find the hook, that one thing that they are interested in, you can't get them to shut up. They will hang on to that and open up and and your entire game will then be centered on the refractive properties of gems. Sometimes this can, if you can broaden that out, that can help. I did hear about, and this is a true story. I'm not making this up. I heard about a D&D group who was formed entirely out of forensic pathologists. When these guys found a dead body in the dungeon, it took serious game time to get past that. Exactly, and truthfully, you don't really want a forensic pathologist to bring their work home. but this is another example of a narrow focus, you know. And this is important to remember these things. And because as a DM, these are the emphases that you have to address with all of these players. And we have a technique that we talked about in XDM. It's called the juggling technique. And the juggling technique lets you go into a game and you look at all of these things. And as you are playing the game, we come along and we have this fight. And we're going down the road, and everybody's a little bit on the listless side. And suddenly there's this random encounter, and there's this fight that takes place, and a lot of gypsies have leaped out of the woods, and they're attacking us, and we're fighting the gypsies back. And at this point, you can look around the table, bowling table, and you can find out, oh yes, okay, we can see who the warrior players are. These are the guys who are having a really good time beating up gypsies. Okay, so but you know, there's a couple of players here right now that are rolling the dice, but you know, it's not really that interesting for them because, you know, it's not really in character to just roll dice and beat stuff up. And so what happens is that all the gypsies are finally defeated except one who's only badly wounded and is giving a death speech. Oh, now the social players, they're yours all.